He sat across from me at my low wooden table, this young doctor from the city, and his tea had gone cold in his hands. He had come all the way to Ogami to study us, to understand why the old people of my village live the way we do. And after 3 days of asking his questions and filling his notebook, he set down his pen. And he looked at me with a strange expression on his face, almost like shame. And he said something very quietly that I have never forgotten. He said, "Takara-san, please, do not tell too many people what you have told me. If everyone lived the way your village lives, there would be very little left for us to do. I am 94 years old, and in all my years, that was the most honest thing a doctor ever said to me. Now I want to be careful with you, because you deserve the truth from an old man. He did not mean it cruelly. He was not an evil person hiding a miracle cure in his pocket. What he meant was simpler and stranger and far more troubling than that. He meant that the things keeping my village alive past 100, the things I am to share with you today, are things that no clinic can charge for, no pharmacy can bottle, and no industry can sell. And that if the whole world simply did them, an enormous machine built on human sickness would have far less to feed upon. That is what he begged me not to say too loudly. And that is exactly what I am going to say to you now, as loudly as this old voice can manage. Today, I am going to share the things that quiet young doctor wrote in his notebook. The daily habits of my village that have kept us strong and clear and free of the little orange bottles for as long as anyone can remember. None of them will cost you a single coin. Most of them are free, and I believe that if you bring even 3 of them into your own life, you will feel it. In your sleep, in your step, in the lightness of your own body, within weeks, not years. But I will tell you now, there is one thing he wrote down last, almost reluctantly, that he told me was the most powerful of all, and the one the modern world has buried most completely. It is not a food. It is not an exercise. It is something so simple and so free that no one has any reason to ever tell you about it. And I am going to save it for the end, because once you understand the rest, this final thing will land upon you with all its weight. So stay with me, all the way to the last word. Let me tell you first of my grandmother, because she is where all my knowing begins. She lived to 102 years old. She never took a pill in her life that I ever saw. She never lay in a hospital bed. And she was in her garden the very week she died, with clear eyes and steady hands, having outlived every doctor who ever might have treated her. She did not defeat sickness with medicine. She simply lived in a way that sickness rarely found her. That is the inheritance I am passing to you now. The same things the young doctor wrote in his notebook, the same things he begged me to keep quiet. Let us begin. The first thing he wrote down was the way we eat, and more importantly, when we stop. I have spoken of this before, but the doctor was struck by it more than anything else at first. We have 3 old words in my village. Hara Hachibu, eat until you are 8 parts out of 10, 80% full. We set down our chopsticks before the heavy feeling of fullness ever arrives, while there is still a little room left in us. My grandmother taught me this with her warm hand over mine when I was a boy reaching for one more helping. 8 parts, Kenji. Leave a little room. The doctor told me this was perhaps the single most studied habit of our village. He said the researchers had found that the people of Ogimi, eating this way across their whole lives, took in noticeably less food than the people of the wealthy cities, and that their bodies, asked to do less, to store less, to strain less, simply lasted longer and stayed well. He told me there was deep science behind it now. And then he laughed, a little sadly, and said, "But you cannot sell eat less to anyone. There is no money in restraint." And there it is, the first whisper of what he begged me not to say. The world will gladly sell you the diet program, the pill to shrink your appetite, the meal in a box, the surgery even, a vast and hungry industry built entirely upon the overfull belly, and we, in our poverty, simply never overfilled it. Three old words, free as the air, did what the whole industry now charges fortunes to undo. That is the first thing. The second thing he wrote down was what fills our plates. Plants, almost entirely. When the doctor looked at what we actually ate, day to day, he was surprised by how little meat there was and how much green and root and bean. The center of our plate was never a great slab of meat. It was the purple sweet potato, the bitter melon, the leafy greens from the garden, the tofu, the seaweed, a little fish. Meat, when it came at all, was the guest at the table, never the host, a small amount used almost like a seasoning on special days. I told him of my grandmother's garden, how she grew most of what we ate just steps from the kitchen door, how the food was alive when she picked it, and alive when we ate it. He wrote it all down, and he told me the researchers had found exactly this, that the traditional Okinawan plate was built overwhelmingly from plants, dense with color and life, and that they tied this directly to our long years and our low rates of the diseases that crowd the hospitals of the wider world. And then the sad laugh again. A garden, he said, has no marketing department. No one earns a profit from a sweet potato you grew yourself. The world sells the costly supplement, the superfood powder in its beautiful jar, the protein in a bright package, while the green leaf and the purple root sit cheap and ignored in the corner of the market. We ate the cheap and ignored things, and they kept us well for 100 years. That is the second thing. The third thing he wrote down was how we move, without ever once exercising. The doctor noticed that no one in my village goes to a gymnasium. There is no gymnasium, and yet the old people here are strong. They kneel in the garden and rise again. They walk the hills. They carry and bend and reach all day long into their 90s and beyond. I told him the truth. We do not exercise. We simply live in a way that keeps the body moving gently, constantly, from morning until night. The movement is woven into the day, not squeezed into one hard hour and then forgotten. He wrote that down too. And he told me the researchers had found this in all the longest-lived places on Earth, that natural, constant, low movement, built into the very shape of daily life, did more for the body across a lifetime than any hard hour on a machine. And then, you can guess what he said. But you cannot sell a hillside. You cannot charge a monthly fee for a garden. The fitness industry needs you to believe that strength must be bought. We bought nothing and kept our strength to the end. That is the third thing. The fourth thing he wrote down was the tea and the stopping that came with it. He saw how we drink tea all through the day. Green tea, our beloved jasmine sandpin tea, warm in the hand from morning to evening. But what struck him was not the leaf, it was the pause. He noticed that the tea forced us to stop, to sit, several times a day, and rest, and do nothing at all for a few quiet minutes. He had not seen people simply sit and rest on purpose in a very long time. I told him of my grandmother, stopping every single afternoon of her 102 years to sit with her warm cup, eyes half closed, in no hurry at all. He wrote it down, and he grew quiet. And he told me the researchers now believed that this constant, gentle rest, this freedom from the endless rushing of the modern world, protected the body in ways they were only beginning to measure. The ceaseless strain of the hurried life, he said, wears people down from the inside, and then, softly, but there is no product for stillness. Takara-san, no one can sell you a pause. That is the fourth thing, and it was here that I began to see where he was leading me, toward the last thing, the thing he wrote down most reluctantly of all. But before I tell you that, let me pause for just a moment. Everything I am sharing with you today, and a great deal more. These habits the young doctor wrote in his notebook, the foods, the movement, the deeper reasons the people of my village reach 100 years and stay so well to the very end. I have gathered together into one simple, written guide. I call it the Okinawa Longevity Method. The link to it rests in the description, just below this video, and it will cost you nothing at all. I ask only one small thing in return, that you stay with me to the very last word, because what I am about to tell you now is the thing the doctor begged me to keep quiet, the most powerful of all. So let me tell you, the last thing he wrote in his notebook, slowly, almost unwillingly, on his final evening in my home. It was the people, the connection, the fact that no one in my village grows old alone. Let me explain, for this is the heart of everything. The doctor had come looking for a food, a herb, a secret remedy he could carry back to the city, and what he found instead, after 3 days, was this: that the single greatest thing keeping the old people of Ogimi alive was not on any plate at all. It was that we are held. We have our lifelong circles of friends. We call them moai. Friends bound to us since childhood, who meet and share and carry one another's troubles to the grave. We have our place among the young who need us and seek our counsel until our final days. We belong to something larger than ourselves, and above all, every one of us has an ikigai, a reason to wake in the morning, a why that pulls us out of bed and into the day. The doctor told me, and this is the part he begged me not to repeat too loudly, that the researchers had found connection and purpose to be as powerful for long life as any food or medicine on earth. That loneliness wounds the body as deeply as disease, that a person with a reason to wake lives measurably longer than one without. He told me it was, perhaps, the most powerful finding of all. And then he set down his pen, and he looked at me with that strange shame, and he said the words I told you at the very beginning. Please do not tell too many people. If everyone lived this way, there would be very little left for us to do. And here, my friend, is why he said it. Why the most powerful secret of a long life, love, belonging, purpose, a reason to wake, has been buried so completely beneath the noise of the modern world. Because not one piece of it can be sold. Think on it truly, and you will never unsee it. There is no money in a moai. No company grows rich by telling you that what you truly need is not a product at all, but 4 friends who will hold the rope with you for 80 years, and a reason to open your eyes each morning. There is no profit in your sense of purpose, no markup on belonging, no pill for a life that means something. These things cannot be packaged, branded, bottled, or shipped, and so the great machine of the world, which can only ever speak to you of the things it can sell, falls completely, silent on the very things that matter most. It will sell you the supplement and the superfood and the longevity pill forever, but it will never tell you to go and mend a friendship or find your reason to wake, because there is not a single coin in it for anyone. That is what the doctor meant. Not that there is a grand conspiracy, a vault of hidden cures. The truth is quieter and sadder than that. It is simply that an enormous part of our world makes its living from human sickness and the things that keep my village well. The eating less, the plants, the gentle movement, the daily rest, and above all the love and the purpose. Ask nothing of that machine at all. A village full of people living the Okinawa way is a village that needs very little of what the machine is selling. And so the machine has no reason to ever tell you how we live. It was not hidden in a vault. It was simply never advertised. Because there was no profit in your health, only in your sickness. But you know now, the young doctor's whole notebook, every page of it, is yours, and every single thing in it is within your reach, beginning today. So let me ask you something, my friend, and I would truly be glad if you would answer me below in the comments where I can read it. Of all the things the doctor wrote down, the eating until only 8 parts full, the plants on the plate, the gentle daily movement, the tea and the rest, or the last one, the deepest one, the love and the purpose and the reason to wake. Which one is most missing from your own life right now, today? Be honest with me and with yourself. There is no shame in the answer. The whole modern world has lost these things. Not you alone. I read as many of your words as these old eyes can still manage, and so do the others quietly gathering in this place. And if this old man's words found their way into your heart today, then stay with us and walk with us a while. Subscribe, not to follow me, an old gardener near the end of his long road, but to join a small and growing circle of people who are choosing, together, to remember what the world was in far too great a hurry to throw away, and what a great many would prefer we never remembered at all. We are not building an audience here. We never were. We are building a moai, a circle of people who hold one another across all the distance of this wide world. In my next video, I am going to tell you about the one thing the people of my village do every single morning before the sun is fully up. A simple habit so small you would walk past it 1,000 times that I believe sets the entire day and the entire life on its course. The doctor never even thought to write it down, but I have done it every morning for 94 years. But until then, my friend, here is what I ask of you. Do not go searching for your long life in the places the great machine points you. The bottle, the shelf, the costly powder that promises the moon. Go instead and do the things that cannot be sold. Eat a little less and slower. Put a plant at the center of your plate. Move gently through your whole day. Sit, sometime today, and rest with something warm in your hands. And above all, telephone the friend you have not called in too long. Make yourself useful to someone who needs you, and find or remember the reason that pulls you from your bed each morning. The world is loud, and the sellers are many, and a great many of them, I am sorry to say, make their living from your sickness, not your health. But the truth is quiet, and the truth is free, and the truth has been waiting in the simple life all along. My grandmother knew it at 102, never once alone, never once afraid, working in her garden to the very end. A young doctor saw it with his own eyes and begged me to keep it quiet. And I have decided, in what years I have left, to do the opposite, to say it as loudly and as plainly as I can to whoever will listen, for as long as this old voice will carry. So here it is, my friend, said plainly, with nothing held back. The secret to a long life was never for sale. It never will be, and that alone is the only reason no one ever told you. Now you know. Go and live it.